I would expect to see gold and silver rebound in a really, really big way later this year. Likely this summer, I would expect we could even see new all-time highs again. As this war escalates and as people get more nervous, once those job losses start becoming announced from major corporations, people are going to hunker down and people are going to stop spending money. So I believe this is going to be the biggest transition of wealth in history. Last 4 or 5 years, we're going to be losing a lot of jobs due to the slowdown in the economy. You can look at today and say, this is going to be the best year for the next 5 to 10 years. So your only option of this war ending is Trump pulling out completely. And I don't see that happening during his term.
Hi guys, welcome to episode 33 of the Gold Awakening podcast. I'm your co-host Marcello, and Michael's your host and precious metals expert. We're going to talk to... How you doing, Mike?
Good, how are you?
Good. We're going to talk today what's going on with the Iran war, the conflict there, and how it affects precious metals. So we'll get into it right now. I'll ask Michael. Is the war or the conflict right now, is that bullish for precious metals? Is it bullish long term, or is this going to just be a short spike? What do you foresee here?
So historically, war is definitely bullish for precious metals long term. However, in the short term, it does that uncertainty and liquidity crisis that it causes creates short-term selling of precious metals because companies need the funds to run their businesses. So that's what you see in the short term. So the first few months of war, you usually do see a pullback in all asset classes, which you did see in precious metals. We came off of our all-time highs. I think we're down 15 to 20% on gold. Silver, we're down 35 to 45%. So you have seen a pullback since the war has begun. However, that's short term. So if you look at other wars throughout history, you'll notice that precious metals do dip early on, but then later on, once things calm down and then people have to put those funds to use, precious metals, they want to go to the safest assets first. And gold and silver are always those assets. So I would expect to see gold and silver rebound in a really, really big way later this year. Likely this summer, I would expect we could even see new all-time highs again by the end of the summer, or early this fall would be my expectation.
Early this fall, right? So right now, the war is kind of like at a standstill, right? They're at the ceasefire. It's indefinite. It went from 2 weeks to indefinite. Are you seeing any changes because of the status right now? Did we see any changes right now? Or as the war escalates, gold and silver will rise?
It's really hard to say on the short term. The market is so volatile right now, day to day. You're hearing different things. Anytime Trump opens his mouth, it causes the markets to really be sporadic. So it could really do either. I would say the more calm things get, the more bullish it will be for all asset classes, stocks, bonds, precious metals. I think all will go up in that environment. However, if you do see the war escalate, I think that's where you'll see some pressure on stocks. A lot of pressure on stocks. In the short term, you'll see pressure on precious metals as well. However, like I said before, war is very, very inflationary. It causes significant inflation. Like we're seeing record high, I think it's been over 12 months now. The biggest inflation we've seen on food is in the month of March, and we saw 7.9% increase, which is the highest it's been in over 12 months. So I think that's going to continue. I think the inflation on food is going to continue to get higher and higher. I think the fertilizer, 20 to 30% of the fertilizer goes through the Strait of Hormuz, which is very limited right now. So there's not a lot going through right now. So that's going to cause major, major issues for farmers for the rest of this year. Also, nitrogen is down 40 to 50%, which is very, very important for farmers as well. So again, you're going to see some major food spikes coming up for the remainder of this year. Again, that inflation is going to cause asset prices to go up. So I would expect gold and silver to do very well in that environment. However, that inflation is going to cause the economy to really slow down and cause businesses to slow down. So I would expect a slowdown in the economy, the stock markets to really roll over a little bit once that inflation really, those numbers start coming out. So you're going to see the Fed will have a much more difficult time lowering interest rates with inflation as high as it's going to be. They may even be forced to raise interest rates, which will really be devastating to the economy, devastating to the housing market. So I think there's a lot of risk coming with this war escalation. I think the war will not go away anytime soon. I think you're going to see the war actually escalate to a much bigger war in the future, more countries getting involved. So I don't think this is going to go away, and I think the inflation is going to get outrageous. Not to mention the how expensive war is, the billions and billions of dollars that these governments have to go into debt for this war. Again, the banks do very well in these wars. They're the ones that are lending the money, so they like war. However, it's just going to cause major, major inflation, slowdown in the economy, a lot less confidence in terms of investing. So gold and silver, in the end, will be a great spot to be. It will be the safest asset to own during this war. So I'm very, very bullish on precious metals.
Yeah, and that's kind of scary. So it gives you more reason to get into gold and silver more than ever now. The war, especially with inflation. Now, on the cliche of follow the money, we're seeing central banks now back buying gold right now, um, more than ever again. You want to
Yeah,
discuss a little bit of that? And
sure.
does that have something
So, I
to
mean,
do that pertains to the war right now, as banks are loading?
well, that's exactly it. I think that's where you got to follow the money. And the biggest money in the world is the central
Yeah.
banks. In 2024 and 2025, those were the two of the biggest years of gold purchases by the central banks in history. 2024 and 2025, those 2 years, they bought more gold than ever in history.
Mhm.
And then if you look at 2026, the first quarter actually trumped those numbers from 2024 and 2025. So we're even growing even at a more rapid rate on gold purchasing by central banks,
Right.
to the point where we actually surpassed U.S. Treasury investments. So now central banks own more gold than they do U.S. Treasuries for the first time in history. So that is very telling. What that's telling is the central banks are losing faith in the U.S. dollar. They're losing faith in the U.S. Treasury market, and that they want to own gold because they believe the inflation that is coming is going to outpace those other asset classes, such as U.S. Treasuries. Because if inflation's running at, like you said, food came in at almost 8%. If we start running inflation at 7, 8, 9, 10% again, these treasuries yielding 4% are not going to cut it. So that's why they're moving into gold. If we see these really, really high inflation numbers, you're going to see gold perform very well. So that's why central banks are moving to gold, because they're going to be able to keep up with that inflation, but U.S. Treasuries will not. The rest of the world is selling U.S. Treasuries.
Yeah.
Russia, China, Japan are selling record amounts of U.S. Treasuries, which is very concerning. So what that's causing is the United States is forcing themselves to print money, go into more debt, and buy their own Treasury market. So they've been buying billions and billions and billions of dollars every single month of U.S. Treasuries because the rest of the world doesn't want them. So if the U.S. got out of that, stopped buying U.S. Treasuries, for example, the Treasury market would completely collapse, or they'd have to raise interest rates to a level where the world would start buying again. But it would be nowhere near 4% on the 10-year. You're probably closer to 6, 7, 8% is where those interest rates would have to go to, which would mean the central banks would have to raise interest rates by 3, 4%, which isn't going to happen. So what's going to happen? The United States is going to continue to print money to buy their own bonds to keep those interest rates suppressed. And all that creates is more inflation. So again, when does precious metals do best? During inflationary periods. The biggest inflation we've seen in the last several decades is in the 1970s.
Hmm.
In the 1970s, gold went up 2,500%, silver went up 4,100%, stocks did nothing, bonds did nothing, real estate did nothing for that whole decade because of the high inflation. They had to raise interest rates. We're about to go through that exact same scenario. Major, major inflation, slowdown in the economy. So stocks, bonds, real estate, it's not where you're going to want to be in this decade. You're going to want to be in commodities, real hard assets like gold and silver. I think that's the safest spot to be for the remainder of this year and this decade. So I strongly suggest people to really start taking notice and start transitioning out of traditional assets like stocks and real estate and start moving into precious metals. 2025 gold and silver were by far the best performing assets. I think 2026 we'll see the same thing. I think the second half of this year, precious metals will do absolutely amazing, and I don't think stocks are going to do that great. And then for the rest of the decade, I think the same thing. I think the economy is. I think Canadians and Americans are they're tapped out here. They're struggling. They're just trying to pay their bills. They're not looking to invest extra money. They're not looking to go on vacations. They're not looking to buy a new home. They're not looking to buy a new car. We're at peak debt right now in the United States and in Canada, and that's not going to change. It's only going to get worse. So things are going to, as this war escalates and as people get more nervous, once those job losses start becoming announced from major corporations, people are going to hunker down and people are going to stop spending money. When that happens, the economy is going to roll over, stocks are going to roll over, real estate's going to roll over, and precious metals is going to be the spot to be. So I believe this is going to be the biggest transition of wealth in history. And if you're on the wrong side of this trade, it's going to be really devastating to your overall net worth. And I think now is the time to start moving your assets out of stocks, out of bonds, out of real estate, and into precious metals.
So guys like Peter Schiff and Mike Maloney will be the Elons and the
100%. Yeah, those guys are going to be. I
yeah.
mean, Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah,
I mean,
but going
these
back, I
guys.
want to pop out that what you talked about the 1970s. I'm gonna pop this up on the podcast. This graph. There's three inflationary
Inflation.
waves in the 1970s, and
Yes.
you just said we're in the first one. This is so you are here, the first one.
Right.
We're in the first wave, right?
Sure. So we got two more waves to
Yeah.
come. So this next one is going to be huge, and it's going to be war induced, right? That's going to be the major cause of this inflation.
Hmm.
The third wave of inflation is likely going to be caused by the money printing from the governments to bail out these banks, just to re-stimulate that economy that is going to be struggling over the next several years.
Yeah.
So they're going to be forced to lower interest rates eventually, print more money, print trillions of dollars, buy their bonds back, try to keep this game going. That's going to cause that third wave of inflation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we got a long way to go in this precious metals bull market. A lot of people think, oh, we might have topped out, and I don't want to buy gold. It's at all-time highs. It's got nowhere to go. You couldn't be more wrong. If you were probably saying the same thing in the 1970s when gold doubled or tripled. Meanwhile, it went up 25 times,
Wow.
25x. So if you pulled your money after a double up,
Yeah.
that would have what a huge mistake that would have been.
Mhm.
Even silver, if you 10x your money in silver and you got out, big mistake because it went up 41 times in that decade. So you could have made an extra 400%. So that's kind of where I see the decade I would compare this decade to, as because I think the inflation that we're going to see is not just a United States specific or Canada specific. This is going to be a global inflationary event. This is going to be a global currency crisis. This is going to cause a reset of the entire global monetary system. This is not just a little minor bump on the radar. This is going to be taught in history books. This is going to be something where we're going to be talking about this for another 100 years. This reset that is going to transpire over the next few years. This is something that's never happened before. We've never had a global currency reset before. We've had currencies collapse in individual countries like the Weimar Republic in Germany. That's happened, but we've never had a global currency crisis. So when the United States dollar goes down, which all fiat currencies around the world are based off of, all global currencies will come down crashing with it. That's the crisis we're about to go through. And that's why it's really, really important to have real physical assets in your possession. Gold and silver are my favorite by far. This is not just a little minor recession that we're talking about. We are heading into the biggest global depression in the history of mankind. This is going to be a really, really tough period of time.
Wow. That's scary. But you got to get into precious metals to,
It's scary, but there's also huge
yeah,
opportunities that it's going to present. I
for
mean,
sure.
I'm going to love buying stocks down 70%. I'm going to love buying real estate down 50, 60, 70%.
Right.
And I'm also going to love owning precious metals during these next few years.
Yeah.
So that's how I would be playing this. I would be buying metals right now, ride it up to the end of the decade. At the end of the decade, turn that money over and buy stocks and real estate
Right.
at depressed prices.
Right.
So that would be my playbook. I think that if you play this right, you can make ridiculous amounts of money. If you play it wrong and you stay in your traditional assets like stocks and real estate, God bless you. It's going to be a tough period for you over these next few years.
Yeah. And to add, you touched on this, the central banks. I want to highlight this more. Foreign central banks now own more gold than U.S. treasures for the first time in almost 30 years.
Right.
That's if that's not a tell, I don't know what.
No, well, not
Yeah,
the other part is the big money's starting to sell stocks, the Warren Buffetts of the world.
yeah,
You're also having BlackRock limiting how much people can withdraw from their investments. So you're starting to see some of these big financial investment companies limit how much you can withdraw. So I mean, there's some significant systemic issues in the financial system, in the banking system. So you're going to need a large injection of money. So you're going to see trillions of dollars printed and given to the banks over these next few years. And again, that's going to cause huge inflation. But like you said, the central banks are buying gold. I
yeah.
mean, follow the money. They're the biggest money in the world. They're the smartest minds in the world. They make the rules. They know exactly what's about to happen over these next few years. So they're getting ahead of it. And if you want to be smart about it, just follow their lead.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's not that difficult. Gold is not at a top. We're not even close. We got several years left in this commodities bull market. The big run happens at the end. If you look at any commodities bull market in history, that last few years is absolutely explosive. Absolutely explosive. For example, in 1979 alone, silver went up from $8 to $50 in 1 year.
Oh wow,
Um, so I mean,
that's a huge.
that's what we're heading to. You're going to see that at some point. It might be in 2029. It might be in 2027. Who knows what year that happens? My guess is going to be later in the decade, where you're going to see silver go from $100 to $1,000 in the blink of an eye.
Yeah,
And that is the opportunity that is about to be presented to ourselves. Silver, for me, is the best investment opportunity of our generation. That's where people need to be invested
mhm.
in. And right now, less than 1% of North Americans are invested in physical precious metals.
And,
So they're not in that
and the
spot.
problem with that is, I see two things. Number one is people are busy; they got jobs, so they have investors, right? Just like you have a doctor, you don't want to worry about that stuff. You want to go to the doctor. Same with your money. You don't want to worry about that stuff. You don't have time to follow stocks. And the problem is investors do not recommend diversifying your portfolio with precious
It
metals.
depends. It depends.
Some might, yeah, but come on,
Yeah.
very
When you say investors, you mean investment managers,
investment
investors that
managers,
buy
right? What people
portfolio.
have, and I think that's what people got to do if you want to sleep at night. Which what you just said, you got to at least start with 5% of your portfolio at least should be precious metals. You correct? You want to add to that? Because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
problem. No
Yeah.
one's diversified in it, right? Just start with a little bit. Just that is kind of like your insurance. Like if you don't have 5% at least in precious metals, that's especially, people are older, you're 40, you're 50, you accumulated wealth, you did well, your job, you
Yeah.
invested, you took advantage of the stock market on its
It's
high.
you're right. It's incredible to
Yeah,
me to see how many wealthy
yeah.
people, multimillionaires, not invested in precious metals at all. And again, it's like you said, they're dealing with investment advisors, and their investment advisors have done very well for them.
Exactly.
Stocks have done incredible over the last several decades. So, I
Yeah.
mean, who are they to say otherwise? However,
Point.
if you compare the stocks to gold, gold's crushing stocks,
Yeah.
silver's crushing stocks. Since 2000, gold is up over 200%, is performing 200% better than stocks. Silver's performing 300% better than stocks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the reality is gold and silver have been better investments than stocks. However, the general public doesn't know that. The general public is happy that they're getting their 6, 7% every single year from the stock market. And God, that's great that you've been able to do that. However, we're in an 18-year secular bull market in stocks since 2008.
Hmm.
So we're getting toppy here. And if you look at valuations of stocks throughout history, right now in 2026, stocks are the most overvalued they've ever been in history. Look how poor our economy is doing. We're in a war, a major war, the biggest war we've been in quite some time. Yet stocks are at all-time highs. Somebody please explain that to me.
Yeah.
There's no connection. There's a huge disconnect between the actual real world economy and the stock market. The stock market has no reflection whatsoever on what's happening in the economy. Because if it was reflecting what's going on in the economy, the stock market would be down 30, 40% at this point. Plus, they'll throw in a war. Meanwhile, we're at all time highs. So the manipulation is outrageous at this point.
Hmm.
But that transition is going to happen. There's going to come a point where they're going to pull the rug on the stock market, and it's going to go down hard, and people are going to get nervous, and that economy is going to go down hard as well. And when that happens, that's you're going to be your opportunity to make money in precious metals. That's where where precious metals do best. When stocks, real estate, and bonds start performing poorly, people get nervous. They start transitioning out of those assets. Right now, everybody's staying in stocks because why wouldn't you? They're at all-time highs. They're making new all-time highs every month.
Yeah.
So you can't blame them. But you got to start thinking about pulling some profits off the table. Stocks have gone up for 18 years. There was only one little blip on the radar during COVID where it went down 20,
Right.
30%. But then it rebounded to new all-time highs the following year. So we're in an 18-year bull market for stocks. The recession has begun, in my opinion. The inflation is creeping up again to new all-time highs. So this is the future we have. Get ahead of that. Start moving into precious metals. I personally think you should have 25% of your net worth in precious metals, not your portfolio, your net worth. So including the home you live in. And if you're not, you're really gambling. You're gambling that everything is going to stay together. The stock market is continuing to do well. The dollar is going to stay alive. Real estate is going to continue to do well. Those are huge risks, in my opinion, at this time.
Hmm.
I think it's time to start moving your assets into precious metals. Again, you have to look at where you're at in cycles. You can't just always just say, I'm going to be 25% gold, 25% real estate, 25%. That's not how it works. You got to look at what situation are you in right now. For me personally, I don't own any stocks right now. I'm completely out. I'm out. I'm not invested in real estate at all. I own my house, and that's it. I don't see those places as good spots to be for investment
Hmm.
returns. I'm looking to 5x my money, 10x my money. What investments can I look at right now that I can 5x or 10x my money? The only place I see right now is commodities, gold and silver specifically, especially silver. I think a 10x is definitely in the cards over the next 5 years. Even if you double your money, stocks are not going to double in the next 5 years. Real estate is not going to double in the next 5 years. I mean, we've topped out in those markets, and I think the biggest this also brings the biggest opportunity that we've seen in quite some time. But most people are going to miss it. Most people are going to go down with this, and go down when the stock market goes down. This war is going to, my opinion, is setting up for a collapse in the stock market eventually. Yeah, we could go to all new all-time highs for another 4 or 5 months, sure. But big deal. Eventually, they're going to pull the rug, and the market's going to collapse, and it's going to collapse hard. And you don't want to be caught holding the bag when that happens.
Yeah, definitely not. And you're already feeling the pain in real estate, like in globally, like Toronto. Uh,
Toronto is brutal. I
yeah,
mean, nobody's excited about real estate right
yeah.
now. Nobody's looking to
China
buy a
has hit
home.
an all-time low. In
What has?
China, they've hit an all-time low of pricing, house pricing, and it's insane. It's already begun what you're talking about.
It's begun. It's just not talked about because again, they don't want you to know.
Yeah,
The recession has begun. Let's be
yeah,
honest. We're in a recession.
100%.
Look at the cost of living right now.
Yeah,
I mean, people are you got two people making over $100,000 a year and they're barely getting by. Barely getting by.
yeah,
They still have max credit card debt.
exactly. Yeah,
I mean, you compare today's world to the Great Depression in the 1930s. I think it's more difficult now than it was then. Um,
yeah,
you you didn't have two people working at that time.
yeah,
Um,
exactly right.
so this is a much more expensive world to live in, and it's only going to become more expensive.
Hmm.
The problem is, eventually, people are going to lose their jobs as well. You're going to lose your jobs to AI, and you're going to lose your jobs to a
And
slowing
that just
economy.
started too. You look at all the layoffs on major corporations. I think um, there's been a couple in the headlines right now, just laying off thousands and thousands of workers.
And we're in the early stages of that. I mean, that's still 5 years away. Where fast forward 5 years, and we're going to be losing a lot of jobs to AI.
Yeah,
Fast forward 5 years, we're going to be losing a lot of jobs due to the slowdown in the economy.
yeah,
Um, so, I mean, the best days are behind you.
right.
Like you can look at today and say, this is going to be the best year for the next 5 to 10 years. People are going to complain about this year and say, "Oh, it's tough. It's the economy's slow." Well, it's not going to get better. I talk to people in the construction industry all the time, and these trades are super slow. They're not doing anything in Ontario. I mean,
Well, houses are not getting built.
Well, if houses aren't being built, and construction is the number one driver of the economy. I think it's 30 to 40% of
And
the
now a
growth
lot of
comes
builders
from.
have moved to rental properties.
They are
Yeah,
switching their
because
whole business model. They have no
you have no
choice.
choice. Yeah,
Who can afford to build a new
yeah,
home?
yeah, exactly correct. So this war is not going anywhere. Even though it's at a standstill, we got a ceasefire, indefinite. Um, you got to be naive to think this war is,
Iran's never going to give in,
yeah.
ever. They've been planning for this for hundreds
But
of
look at the
years.
war in Afghanistan that led to 20 years, for God's sakes, or 17 years. Like this one, I could see it even going longer.
It could, because it's unwinnable.
Yeah,
You can't win this
yeah,
war. There's no way the United States will ever win the war in Iran.
yeah,
It's an impossible mission.
yeah.
So your only option of this war ending is Trump pulling out completely, and I don't see that happening during
Well,
his term.
exactly. And people were fooled. Trump um, ran on no wars, and look what he did. And I think his base is very upset. I think Trump lost,
He's losing a lot of support,
losing a lot
and
of.
it's just going to continue to get worse, in my
So
opinion.
where do you,
Unless
let's end with a prediction. Where do you see gold and silver now? Um, where do you see gold and silver at the end of 2026? Let's
sure. So right now, gold is at 4,500 US.
okay.
I think we're going to get to 6,000 US by the end of the year.
Wow, that's
Um,
great.
so that's a 33% increase.
Which a lot of
Silver is
banks,
right now is
sorry, a lot of banks agree with you. There's banks that come out that said, that
yeah, 6,000 is a
yeah,
popular number,
yeah,
between 5,500 and
yeah,
6,000. So I mean, I think it's as much as it's a big return. I still think that's somewhat conservative. Um, Now silver is where I see the real upside. Silver's right now is at $71. It went all the way up to 100, over $120 earlier this year.
right.
Um, so I think we're going to get back to those all-time highs and make new all-time highs. I think we'll end the year around $150 US. So that's a double
Wow.
up. You're looking at 100% returns here. So I mean, where else are you going to find? Where else are you going to double your money in this world? It's not real estate. It's not stocks.
Yeah.
It's not Apple stock or whatever stock you think is going to do amazing. I mean, you might get lucky and find a stock here and there, but silver is so needed in the world today due to all the industrial demand. Not to mention this war. This war needs so much silver.
Mm.
That's going to cause more constraints on silver, which is already seeing the biggest demand in history from an industrial standpoint. Solar panels, electric cars, AI chips, all the technology that this world requires today. We have major shortages in silver. Every single year, there's a 20% shortfall. They only mine 1 billion ounces of silver every year, but the demand is 1.2 billion ounces. This year, that demand is going to go up because of the war.
Yeah.
You probably add another 100 million ounces of silver needed for the war. I'm completely making that number up, but it's a big number. So I mean, where is this silver going to come from? They can't mine it quick enough. It's been 5 years in a row where they've had over 1 billion ounce shortfall in silver. So 200 million ounces every single year they're short. Where is this going to? Eventually, they're going to run out. The COMEX and the LBMA are sitting on the lowest amounts of inventory they've ever sat on in history. There's going to come a point where these exchanges are no longer able to deliver the physical silver to who demands it. And when that happens, it's going to cause major chaos in the financial world, and it's going to cause the price of silver to absolutely explode. And you don't want to be on the sidelines for that, because then after that, you're not going to be able to buy any physical silver. By the time you're able to buy physical silver, the price would have gone up 5x.
Hmm.
So you want to get ahead early. You don't want to be late. You're better to be a year, 2 years early than one day late. And that's what I say about silver, because I know where silver is going. I know the shortages that are going to happen in silver. Um, to me, it's a certainty. As far as the shortages in silver, obviously the price can be manipulated for quite some time. However, there's going to come a point where the physical silver runs out, and you're going to want to own as much silver as you can when that happens.
And
So for
now's
me,
the
I'm
time.
stacking
Take
silver.
advantage of the dip. Like now,
Yeah, like you're down like 45% in silver,
it's almost like a
and
gift.
right here locally at
Mhm.
Can-Am, nobody's buying all of a
Yeah.
sudden. Like we were lined up out the door for over a month,
Wow.
um, when the prices were over 100 US. Okay, now we're at 70 US and nobody's buying.
Wow.
That's the psychology of
Yeah.
humans when it comes to investing.
Exactly.
They have no concept of when you're supposed to buy. You're supposed to buy when the market, nobody else is buying.
Yeah.
Like this is the time to buy. But they're going to come and buy again when we're at all-time highs. I already know it. We'll be slammed again
Yeah.
when we're at 150 US silver. We're going to be lined up outside the door. Everybody's going to want to buy.
Buy now.
And what are we getting right now? People are selling. Every day, people are selling their gold and silver. It's
Yeah.
like, this is not the time to sell. I mean, this is the time to buy, and you're going to want to hold on to. The other thing I'd say about gold and silver, I get it. People need money, but I would always look at gold and silver as your last asset to sell when you need money. Sell everything else you got before your gold and silver. Your gold and silver is your insurance.
Exactly.
That's your wealth. Sell your stocks. Sell you got if you got, for example, so many people own like rental properties, but then they'll come sell me their gold and silver because they need money. Sell a rental property. What's your upside on that rental property? That home ain't going up in value at all. No chance. No chance your home's going to go up in value over the next few years. What are you going to make? 10%? All those headaches to make a small percentage?
Right.
Silver, the upside in silver is life changing, and it's just something that people don't own. And I can't stress it enough. This is the time to start investing into physical silver.
Exactly. Everything you said is logical and it makes total sense. I can't see anyone disagreeing with you. The only thing that you're up against is the corruption, right? Because gold and silver has been suppressed, right? So
It's going to continue to be
only
suppressed.
that's because
Yeah, short term, you're taking risk, like any asset, right? I mean, every single asset in the world is manipulated. It's
yeah,
not just gold and silver. Some assets are manipulated to the upside, some are to the downside, but eventually we'll be right. Like you said, they've been manipulating gold and silver for the last several decades. However, gold and silver are still the best performing
yeah,
assets since the year
exactly. Yeah.
2000. So
So
it,
let's
they can only manipulate short term, is the point.
let's hold those predictions. So gold 6,000 and silver
Silver 150
150
US.
by the end of 2026. You heard it here first. The Gold Awakening, the podcast you can't afford to miss. Thank you very much. Stay tuned for our next podcast coming next week. I'm Marcello,
All right.
co-host. This is Michael Piccioni, the host. Take care, guys.
We definitely
Thanks. See you guys.
take care, man.